published articles at the intersection of science and policy in the Washington Post, Scientific American, and other outlets. Dr. Sabag's contributions have been recognized with multiple awards from NIH and other organizations, including being named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. So I'm sure that is on your CV. Let me stop sharing and I can have, let's see, change this view.
Okay, how are we doing? Can you see? I haven't started presentation mode yet.
Yep, but we can see it, and I'm just finding your video to pin you. There we go. All right, we are ready.
Are you gonna watch I guess our questions at the end? I'm not good at multitasking, like presenting and watching the chat sometimes.
Yeah, I will keep an eye on the chat for you and let you know if something comes up. And
yes, please
if you'd like us to hold our questions, let us know. Otherwise,
no, during is completely fine. And interruptions and discussion is completely fine. I just sometimes might miss it, and that's what I worry about.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll be monitoring it.
Okay, well, thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Ubada, as you heard, and it's nice to be virtually visiting my old stomping ground. I went to UMKC, and before that, I went to the Metropolitan Community College in Lee Summit for 3 years. So I used to visit Gates all the time, the one that's like near Stowers and UMKC. It was a good time. Maybe next time I chat with you, it can be in person. That would be nice. But yeah, it's my pleasure to be here to talk about building an online presence, showcasing your work using a personal website. I think this is something that a lot of people might be interested in, but don't know where to get started or what reasons they might have to do it. So in today's talk, we're basically going to cover why they're useful, why they could be useful, personal websites, and then look at some examples and then go over the basic building blocks of how you might start to construct one. And like I said, please feel free to interject at any point. I'll also hopefully remember to pause at some points and ask if there's any questions. This is not meant to be a formal thing. All right. Okay, but before, I know this is websites, but before we talk about websites, this is something that I always tell people, and like I will post about it online every few months. Please, if you haven't made one, make a Google Scholar profile. If you haven't heard of Google Scholar, which evidently some people haven't, it's a very simple way to aggregate all your papers, your output, whether it's papers or books or preprints or whatever, in one central place. And very simple, like maybe you put a picture, some basic contact info, but it makes life a lot easier. You don't need to have a website, but this is a good starting point. And so I put this little info box here only because some people might not know like what utility Google Scholar might have. And so it's useful as long as you have at least one paper. I think you can't even make one if you don't have one kind of thing to post. But even if you have one, you should make it. And the reason for that is because it's good to be able to track your citations for your own sake. And then it's good for other people, your colleagues, to be able to know like, okay, easily what papers are citing this person's papers. And then the other thing is that, you know, it's a good place to, it lets you put some research interests and things like that. So it's a good place to be able to have your contact info in a simple presentation. It doesn't have to be so sophisticated. All right, now we can go back to talking about websites. So first things first, you don't need to have a website or an online presence to get jobs in many different academic careers. I think today you have a 2-day workshop, right? Today is basically focused on academia. And for academia, you certainly don't need to have a website to get a job. And outside of academia, you don't need to have a website, but it doesn't hurt. And sometimes it can help. So don't feel pressure or anxiety around the fact that you don't have one, is why I mentioned this. Social media is an alternative or something that is complementary that a lot of scientists use. There's many different platforms, and people have affinities to different ones, so it's worth trying out if you want. But if you don't have social media, or you don't want to set one up, a website is less stressful, less overwhelming. Like, for example, if you get overwhelmed by the constant stream of information, which I'm that way, social media can be a little too much. Or you don't want to engage in constant dialogue with people, but you want to have your information out there. A website lets you control how your information is out there, but you don't need to have a constant go back and forth. So, social media, I don't need to show you this, like, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. Outside of academia, LinkedIn is super, super like useful and widely used. In academia, not so much. I should qualify, most of what I'm talking about is biomedical research, but this is KUMC, so I assume that's what we're all doing. TikTok, a lot of scientists use it. I don't use TikTok or Instagram, but people, and then I put Be Real here just because I know it exists. I don't know that any scientists use it for science stuff, but maybe some Gen Z scientists out there do. And then separate from, websites and social media, there's these different ways to aggregate your academic portfolios online. Google Scholar, I don't know if you guys, can you see my cursor, by the way? That might be useful later. Okay, good. So Google Scholar is what I mentioned. I think that and OrcID or ORCID are two that you really should have. It's just going to be super useful for your academic career moving forward. And then there's all these other ones that have different utilities, and some of them are kind of lame, but just be aware of them, I suppose. All right, so this slide was titled why you should have a website, and then I changed it because I was like, I don't want to be prescriptive. You shouldn't have anything, but like, what can you benefit from a website? The first thing is it helps people find you. So oftentimes, like, somebody, let's say on a search committee or an awards committee, or not even in a hierarchically higher place than you in their career stage or whatever, but like, I might want to know something, or let's say I read a paper and the lead author is a postdoc, and I want to know more about what that postdoc's working on for whatever reason I might have. And there's an activation energy that you have to overcome in order to contact somebody and be like, hey, what are you doing? But like, if you have a website where you talk about it, then it's an easier thing for people to learn more about you without having to like directly interact with you. And so like, it's just, that's one use. Another thing is that it helps you yourself, because when you have all things in one place, you have one thing to point to. Let's say you're in a very brief conversation at a conference or whatever, and somebody is super interested and says, oh, I want to hear more, but you don't have time. I mean, I suppose you can give a business card, and that's good, but the business card will have them email you probably. And then that's, again, you have to have a conversation back and forth with everyone you do that with. But if you have a centralized place, then they can look at it, look at your projects, what your accolades, your interests, whatever it is that they're interested in. And then after that, have a better informed conversation with you about whatever it is they want to talk about. And if you upload your CV to your website, which I recommend, and we'll talk about it later, it's also useful because maybe you want to pull it up on your phone really quick in a time crunch or something, or for whatever reason. I definitely have benefited from it a lot, particularly at conferences. And then lastly, and this is relevant to the above 2 points, but it deserves its own emphasis, is exposure. Having a website really increases your exposure in your community and more broadly. If you're somebody who's interested in public outreach, you can put stuff on your website that's useful for members of the public that you are interfacing with. You can point them to the materials that you have on your website. But it really is a way to showcase your work as a scientist, as a scholar, that goes beyond just your papers, which are very infrequent, as hard as we try, and are very narrowly defined. You're talking about a particular project, but maybe you do a lot of other things that you want to talk about. And so a website is a place to do that. And it helps you get jobs. It can help you establish collaborations. And it can, even if people are like, oh, I like the general vibe of this like person, then, maybe they want to connect with you and you turn out to be friends. So these are some things that a website can give you. So what components, what content, right, can we put in a website? This is not an exhaustive list. This is just like things that I would, if you asked me, this is what I would say, like you should consider. Obviously, CV. We already mentioned that. Your publications and your preprints. It's very good to have it on there. Redundancy is okay. So let's say you have a Google Scholar. There's nothing wrong with having your publications in your Scholar account and your publications in on your website. And then your research interests and your research experience. So this can be, I should say, there is no structured way, like it's completely under your control. And that's one of the nice things about this, is like you curate information about yourself in the way that you want. So like maybe you want to articulate an arc throughout your career, like in undergrad, I did this, in my master's or PhD, I did this, and now I'm working on this, and the overarching question is blah, blah, blah. You know, maybe you want to craft a narrative so people view you as like, as that, and not just your most recent papers. Or maybe you're not working on something yet, but you know that when you start your own lab or something like that, you want to have, you have these research interests that you see along the trajectory of your career. You can articulate that on your website. So when people look you up, which they will know, okay, this person, when they go on the market, they're going to be interested in such and such like fields. Similarly, teaching interests. So maybe you want to go into academia, but you don't want to do like, you know, research intensive institutions or jobs, and you want to teach more, or you want to have some combination. You can articulate a teaching philosophy. You can even post a teaching statement. I'll show you an example of this on your website. Places like liberal arts colleges or community colleges or universities that do research but also have teaching requirements, they're going to be interested in seeing that kind of thing. So that's another thing that you can add. Resources for others. This is a thing that I like a lot, is, you know, if you have things to share with people, a nice thing to do is put it on your website. This could be examples of grants you've gotten to help others, templates of whatever. We'll look at examples of these. Protocols, if you develop some new protocols, you can list them on your website. And then hobbies, showcase your personality a little bit. Some people do this. I'm in favor of it. You want to show up as your whole self, not just your science. Then go for it. You know, put it on your website. A lot of people put photography, art, which is photography is an art. I don't know why I did that, but like, you know, whatever, painting, sculpting. I've been getting into ceramics and pottery a lot. I don't have any of that on my website, but like that's something that you can have. Writing, if you write articles or write, there's a guy I met like last month who is a postdoc at UC San Francisco, and he has literally, he writes book reviews for nobody, just like on his website that he posts, and he reads books and writes book reviews. I mean, I don't know how often they're read, but that's him, you know. Barbecue. I have a friend, we're going to look at his website. He has a little barbecue stuff on his thing. Whatever makes you happy, whatever shows who you are, you can put it on there if you want. And then of course, all your handles and your email and contact info. And then this gets a special box, because this is something that I also like to emphasize, is that I think if you care to showcase the values that drive you as a scientist, that's a website is a good place to say this too. So let's say your values can be like social justice related, or they can be you know, research integrity and rigor related, or they can be lab culture related, or whatever. But like if you're a values driven person, which I hope we all are, at least this generation of scientists, then this is a place that you can talk about that and people can learn that about you. Okay, we're going to look at, I think, 3 or 4 examples. I'm sorry, we're going to start with mine, but I'll show you some others. They're going to be different structures and different content, so I wanted to show you a variety. Let me just check the time. Okay. Now let's hope for screen sharing purposes this works out okay. Can I get a thumbs up if we can see? Okay, cool. All right, so this is my website. When you go to it, this is what we call a landing page, which is the thing that you see first. And I chose to have 2 things that I feel like most people will be interested in looking at. which is my CV and contact, just up front, easy. You don't have to navigate anything, whatever. So if you click on my CV, you can see like a PDF version of my CV that is like scrollable, and you can download it if you wanted the PDF. And there you go. See, there's Kansas City and there's Longview. But yeah, this is just my CV. And then you can also go to contact, and I put my email. If you want, we can talk about why I did this way instead of writing the @ symbol. But yeah, I have my email here. There's a contact form, which I like to have as an option, and people do use it, which for me, for my workflow, helps a little bit. We can talk about that too if you're interested. And at the bottom, I have some handles. I really should take away the Facebook one. I don't use Facebook. I forgot this is here. Another thing you'll see throughout this talk is that websites, it's work to update them and keep them maintained. So I might be surprised by some things I see. A new thing I've been doing now is like every once in a while, people will reach out for like whatever, chatting, informational interviews or something like that. It's been getting a little overwhelming. So I set up a thing where you can like set up a 30-minute meeting, put it on my calendar, you put what's the agenda, and then and it's integrated in my calendar. So if I'm not available, it'll show up as not available. And if I am open, then it'll give time slots that people can book. It's experimental still. I'm waiting to see how well this system works. Okay, and then we enter the website. So this is my about page. Straightforward headshot, name. I have my current affiliation and title. I have a very, very short bio about like my academic trajectory. And then I have a short description of my current research program and what I'm interested in. I didn't want to have very detailed information here because you just want to make it easy for people to learn the important stuff. If they want more info, they can navigate to another page. Something I've gotten good feedback on is that I actually put the pronunciation of my name because it's kind of hard. So I typed it out, and I also have audio. You can hear, I just like spoke into a mic and recorded myself saying it in English and Arabic, and you can see that here. This button leads you to the CV itself, the same one you already saw. Again, redundancy is okay. And then this is like a description of the logo for my website, which is something that I made during grad school, but I have to revisit it. You can actually see here, I said, as my research evolves, so will the logo. I'm not working in Visual System anymore, so this might evolve, but it's on the to-do list way, way low. So yeah, so this is the about page. At the bottom of every page, I have my contact, social that I care to share with people, and that's it. Then I have different tabs. So in the science tab, I have a research page, which describes my research. Again, I haven't updated my postdoc stuff because I'm still developing my projects and I'm not ready to like talk about the overview of everything. But my PhD work is here. Again, you can be as detailed as you want. I just wanted to give the overview, what circuits, what's the goal, what's the question. Publications, I have my publications listed here. I also have up here like PubMed, Google Scholar, like links to various portfolio things. If people prefer that, they can go there. The goal is just to make it easy for people to find what they want about you. And then this page, which I really is one of my favorite pages, is a people you should know page. This is not a standard thing on people's websites, but this is something that I wanted to do, which is, it's not a popularity list. It's like people who have directly influenced my development and my philosophy as a scientist, through either their example or through interactions with them that I learn from them. So then I want to highlight them and link to their whatever it is, their lab website if they have a lab, to their social, whatever it is they want. So I just tell them like, hey, give me like a few words to describe your work. And then I decided a year ago to start putting like if they're hiring or if they're on the market, in case somebody comes across this page and is interested, and then they can go and check out that person. And I usually, a lot of my pages have this little blurb at the top that I put some value statement or something to say what the motivation for doing whatever it is that the page is discussing. And then I have this pie in the sky page, which is an arbitrary, completely arbitrary countdown to when I have my own lab. It's literally just when my grant runs out. So, I mean, there's nothing in the pipeline except I just decided to set a clock. But I don't know. I like this confocal image I took, so I was like, okay, we'll make it a page. Writing samples from articles I've written over the years. A page on my policy and advocacy work. So like this is just different service that I'm involved in. So again, value statement, and then some like short blurbs on the different projects or endeavors that I have. I have a gallery of that's not updated, but like of some pretty, microscope images from my work over the years. Only because I think they're pretty, like nothing happens with this. It's not like they need to have a copyright thing on them, but I just decided to put it on them. Like they don't end up in magazines or anything. They're just on my website. Because I'm extra, I have my MRI recording on my website actually. And I show myself playing in VR with my brain. This is my actual like brain, slicing it around, even 3D printing it. So I don't know, just for fun. But for outreach stuff, this is helpful actually. Sometimes like I'll point students to this and and I'm not reading the blurbs to you, but they're written in a way that it's not for neuroscientists to understand. It's for anybody. I have my some videos. I have my entire PhD defense on my website. I have different interviews or panels or whatever that I've done on the website. And then I have resources. So this is one of the most popular pages on my website, which is a postdoc guide that I wrote. If anybody is interested in pursuing a postdoc soon, graduating soon, maybe you find some help here. But this is a very thorough thing I wrote last year that has gotten very popular. I'm very glad people are finding it helpful. But it's an article, on the step-by-step process of like how to think about a postdoc. There's some downloadable, like here's a list template for how I organize my list of potential labs. I talk about my experiences and suggestions. Here's a actual cold email that I sent, and like I break it down of why I wrote it this way, and so on. And then at the bottom, I link to other resources from other people or other organizations that might be helpful to people. Links that are just to like things that, my affiliations and my departments, organizations I believe in, funding opportunity databases that might be helpful to people, organizations I'm affiliated with professionally. I also have resources for like some people like my CV template structure. So I made it into a template that you can download, posters, templates in AI format, because I think PowerPoint is lame for posters. And grants that I've gotten or fellowships I've gotten, if people want, they can request the grant materials from me here. And then another popular thing is a shadow CV, which is basically a CV of my failures. So actually you can see these are like PhD programs that I didn't get into and never got an interview with. And there's Mizzou. I think Mizzou makes it twice. Yeah, there. One time I ran into the chair of the department who sent me the rejection email at a conference, and I was like, "Hey, you're the guy. You're the guy. I'm the guy." But yeah, this is like I made this cartoon about like once you start getting visible awards, some people forget that there's rejection is normal and failure is normal, and so this is like an effort to just show like, okay, every time there's a success, that's good, but like tons of failures, awards that you're rejected from, or positions that you don't get, programs that you don't get into, like all these different things. I mean, I recently wrote this grant, the HHMI Hannah Gray Fellowship, that I really wanted, but didn't work out. And then, more that I still haven't made yet. Like I have other resources that I plan to make available to people, but I haven't had the chance. Press, some people put press on their website, like when they're featured in different things. And then the contact page just links you back to my landing page's contact right here. Okay, so I think we'll close this. Go back to here. Are we seeing the PowerPoint on the screen? Okay. I'll pause here and then if there's any questions or something, and then I continue. The next thing is just we're going to look at 2 more websites, I think, and then we move forward with how to build the building blocks of the website.
I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but I'll wait and see if maybe they come in. Does anyone in the audience have a question? Yeah, give me 1 second.
And if the questions go along, that's fine. I can just decrease the amount of websites we look at.
Hi, this is Olivia Eller. I'm a postdoc here at K. Your website is awesome.
Thank you.
How much time would you say you spend on updating it or whatnot a week? It looks like it takes a lot of work, obviously, but
I kind of I don't have so definitely I don't do it weekly. My CV I update literally every time something happens, because otherwise I know I'm going to forget. So my CV I update all the time, and then it's just a PDF. So I just replace the PDF that's on the website with a new PDF from my computer, and that corrects it everywhere. But the content of the website probably like no more than 5 times a year, honestly. And that's maybe not super great, but I just it doesn't go high on my to-do list. Building it out took me a lot of time because it's custom code. We haven't talked about that, but like I had to learn a lot on YouTube, a lot of stuff, and it had different like versions over the years. But the updating, I think if there's a major thing, like, oh, I started a new job, I'm a postdoc, okay, like I got to update a bunch of stuff now. Or if I have a new like advocacy effort or policy work that I'm doing that I think is important, that I want to show and talk about, then I'll take the time. But yeah, I think I probably should have like a calendar reminder maybe once a quarter or something like that to update it. But it's really at your discretion. I don't think I do it more than 5 times a year. But I've never thought about how many times.
Thank you. It seems like you've done such an exhaustive job of putting so much content on there that once you get that work done, updating it takes much less time.
Yeah, and also if it depends on how detailed the stuff you put up is. So if you put up super detailed stuff, then it is likely going to need to be updated more frequently. But if you do big picture or higher, like general descriptions of things, projects, outreach, whatever, then it's a little bit easier. I will say, like, for example, the press section is maybe a year out of date. Like some things I don't prioritize, but definitely like there's been more things to add, but I haven't added. I usually prioritize things like publications, my CV, and if there's like an outside of the lab effort that I'm very passionate about and I want to put on there, then I'll make a new thing. But the stuff like press and whatever, I usually rank low on my to-do list.
You had mentioned you are coding your website, so that ties into this question from Jared S., which is, what resources are you using to make this website? How are you hosting it? How much does that cost? And so if you want to defer those for later, feel free.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But if there's nothing else besides that, we're going to get into that. And if I don't answer your question later, bring it up again.
Perfect. Carry on.
Next one is a friend, Kayla. She is a postdoc at Emory. And the reason why I want to show, not just because she's my friend, but also like she took a very different approach and she uses a different structure. So first of all, this is Wix. Okay, this is a service, an online service. If you go to the bottom of her page, you can see proudly created by Wix.com. It has this like watermark thing. So her landing page is this. When you go to the website, has her name, pronouns, her title and affiliation, and she has her email front center. Kayla, every year of her postdoc likes to make a little Canva summary for her own sake. So she lists, okay, I got some awards, or she actually did name some chickens. We have a mutual friend that has chickens that we get to name. Publications, talks she gave, courses she taught, guest lectures, whatever, panels, podcasts. And then, this is, again, going back to personality, like she's really into puzzles, and she just really likes to nap, and she's became an aunt again. And, these, back to the superlative thing, this is maybe like her superlative, like most likely to share a playlist. But like, this is how she chooses to present herself, and so she does it because you're completely in control. This is your website. She has her short bio, and then she has a link. You can read a fuller bio, her education history, awards, hobbies, or fun facts. I did not know she had these things. Yeah, she's also into astrology, so she has that on her website. She has a PDF for her CV if you click on it. And then her research, is here, her questions, the publications, associated with her research. And then she has teaching, mentoring, and service philosophies. So, a quote that motivates her by Toni Morrison, a blurb about her philosophies and career goals and how they relate to each other. And then if you click here, you can see, her teaching philosophy blurb, her mentoring philosophy blurb, and her service philosophy blurb. And then, she peppers it with pictures and of her in action. And then you can see here that she literally, like, if you click here, this is her teaching statement, like her teaching philosophy, so she just puts it up front like that. Again, really showcases her values up front, and then talks about her philosophy. And this is true for teaching, for mentorship philosophy as well. This one, I guess, is 2 pages. And so, like, this is, I really appreciate this. Like, it's a very, like, kind of unique approach. And then she has resources. So, like, grants she has, people can download them. These are like Google Drive links or something. And then some initiatives that she supports and invites people to go check out. And yeah, and that's it. So she has less pages than me, right? Or fewer pages than me, but definitely, like, content's heavy. Like, this is a very rich website, in my opinion, because there's a lot of stuff on here that not only showcases her work and her values, but also helps other people. So, like, definitely people benefit from looking at examples of a teaching philosophy. Like, that's something that when postdocs are applying to positions are, like, stumped by, because you've never had to write that before, and then the example grants and so on. And you can see again at the bottom links to the socials. So this is another example. We're gonna now look at a third, and this is Daniel Gonzalez. His website is not a .com, notice it's a .science. I don't think that you should do .science, but we can, if you want to know why, you can ask me later. That's a little bit of a technical answer, but this is Daniel's landing page. So, like, immediately, he's a postdoc at Purdue right now, and he's opening a lab at Vanderbilt in 2024, actually. But I love his landing page because this, like, striking photo. He's an engineer, and he develops, like, neurotech, like, probes to record electrophysiological signals in the brain. And one sentence: I'm Daniel, physicist who builds tools for neuroscience. You scroll down, it's his picture, and then short bio about, his trajectory and what he's interested in, and that's it. That's the end of the page. When you go to the science tab, I should say this is Squarespace now. So we've looked at custom, we've looked at Wix, this is Squarespace. His research overview, some striking pictures, publications. These are, like, highlighted publications, then a list of all of his publications. And then Daniel and I both, like, came up with this idea together to do the people you should know thing. So these are his people that you should know. There's me. But I don't know all these people, but they're, like, important to him and his life. And so, he highlights them. So I think it's a nice thing to do. And then another nice thing Daniel has is like he's building a resource blog to talk about some of the, I don't know what this shit is like, sorry, but I don't know like what this like, I don't know, he's a physicist. So like if you click here, I don't know, I can't tell you if this is helpful or not. It's just random words to me. But like, you know, micropillar, whatever. I know intrinsic imaging. I remember, yeah. So like here, he was struggling to build a custom microscope for a while. And so he put in detailed information about where to order stuff. Like once he figured it out, where to order stuff, how to build it, and to save people a lot of money, you know? And so like, this is an example of putting your protocols on your website. And then he has a page called DEI, which is his diversity statement, value statement, I guess. So this is his like philosophy and some resources that he links to. And then he has a page. Unlike me, he actually has a lab coming. So he announced his that he accepted an offer and that he's opening January 2024. And so he says, oh, okay, I'm interested in students and postdocs. Contact me if you're going to be on the market. And then he has a CV link here. Okay, just checking time. So I had another website, but honestly, I think you've seen enough. Jasmine does have a really nice website. You should check it out, Jasmine Kwasa. But for the sake of time, I want to leave time for questions and discussion at the end. So I'm going to move forward. So the overview, there's only so much we can get into in an hour. So I'm giving you like the overview of how to, the building blocks of a website. The first thing is you need to figure out what the questioner, Jared, I think you said, asked, which is hosting. Hosting is where your website lives, like the actual data that goes into your website. Where is it kept? And so there's different services that offer you this. I use HostGator, but there's all these other ones. I use HostGator just because I looked up, I just did a bunch of Googling. I don't have like a super great reason other than it looked like it made sense based on my Googling, and the price wasn't super expensive. It's like less than $10 a month. And for a personal website, you don't need that much space like data, and it's not a business, it's no e-commerce or anything like that. So I'm not worried about like privacy of like credit cards and security and things like that. The next thing is you need to figure out what you're going to call your website, right? And this is the domain name. So the availability for domain names varies, but you can buy them from different places like domain.com or GoDaddy.com. I bought mine from GoDaddy.com years ago. And then you want to figure out, okay, once you have these things, you know, we talked about content. We showed you examples of content, but then how are you going to build it? How are you going to structure the website? And so you can use things called content management systems, or you can do a custom code, which is usually HTML and CSS code. So I just want to say that there's many services online that allow you to combine, you know, two or all of these things in one service. So I think, for example, Squarespace, you can buy a domain through Squarespace and then host through Squarespace, and the Squarespace is the content management system. Not everything is free, but a lot of things can be free. So an example of free hosting, if you didn't want to pay for anything, or you didn't want to pay for anything right away, is that some institutions have free hosting available on their departmental servers. I'll show you an example of what that kind of URL could look like. Another free option is like some websites allow you to do third-party hosting, which means that they watermark your website and they have ads usually on your website. And that's the trade-off that you make to have it for free. And sometimes that means your URL also looks different. And I'll show you an example. You probably have seen this though. And then paid, which is what I do. You can pay a hosting service annually or monthly to host your website, and it can be pretty cheap, honestly, not that much. I think I paid like 5 years at once, so I don't have to think about it again for a while at least. For the domain name, like I said, availability varies, and depending on what you want to call it, and you know, if you're calling it your name and you have a common name, I mean, odds are it's going to be tough to find. but also maybe you want a .net or .org or whatever, and you don't want a .com. Maybe you find that. So you can have you can find options for free domain name. So for example, your name.wix.com is a thing that can exist, or Weebly or whatever. Or I don't know that KUMC does this, but let's say KUMC does have hosting available for you or whatever for free. Then usually it looks something like this. So like Harvard's, I know it looks like scholar.harvard.edu/the name, you know. So like this is just a random name I made, like Mustafa Passion. But yeah, so you can have these kinds of options, or you can buy a domain name, which is what I did. And so like I went to GoDaddy.com and I wrote this made up name I came up with. And then you can see that the .com is available and you can get it for $0.01 for the first year with a 2-year registration. I don't know what the second year is, but presumably it's $20. And then, you know, there's the .org, .net, .art, .tech. Like there's so many dots that you can have. I don't know specifically like bad things about any of like how you should triage which domain you want, but like I'm not that tech savvy that I would know upsides and downsides, except that .com is the most common. And .science, I know some tricky things about it, even though it's very attractive because it's kind of cool. I would maybe avoid it. Okay, and then the third thing is, how are you going to build your website? So how are you going to add the content and organize it and structure it? So you can do custom code if you want. If you have the ability or the skill sets, go for it. And honestly, I'm a sucker also for like simple interface. Like I know mine has some flashy stuff on it, but like sometimes I see people's websites that are like super bare bones, and I love that kind of shit. So like I think you can look at trying out HTML, CSS. HTML is the structure basically, and CSS is like the details of how the presentation comes out. So you can do this. There's also like some tools that enable you like that you can use as a little bit of a crutch to help facilitate you. You don't have to literally write this in like a coding environment, but odds are if you really want to get involved in the details of building it, you will have to write like code yourself. But I just learned over the years because I wanted to, it was just me, like a personal thing. I wanted to like know everything in my website. So so I just took my time. I wasn't in a rush, and I just YouTubed a lot of stuff. And then there's free services. So like I said, you can have hosting from a service, and that service can also have a content management system. So WordPress, I bolded only because my previously, before I had a custom website, I used WordPress. It's pretty easy to use, not that complicated at all. All of these are easy to use. I've never used GitHub Pages, but I've heard good things about it, especially for academics. They seem to like it a lot, and seems to be pretty easy to get up and running, and aesthetically quite nice. Wix, I showed you an example of already. And then there's paid services. So they have different packages depending on what you're trying to do. But WordPress is here again because WordPress has like free templates and it has paid templates, you know, depending on the sophistication you want. Same thing with these guys, they have paid packages. And then Squarespace, if you're okay spending money, this $15 a month is from my memory, like last time I checked. I've built websites on Squarespace before. Excuse me, not for me, but for organizations or other people. And they have very striking templates. It's really pretty aesthetically, and super easy to like get off the ground. Weebly, Wix, and Squarespace are like this kind of thing that we call what you see is what you get, which is essentially you literally drag and drop things and structure however you want, and then that's what you see on the website. So it's very convenient. Squarespace costs more than free, obviously, and then more than some of the other paid ones. But if you have the money, then, or you're willing to invest the money, and then I highly recommend it. It makes it way less stressful. And has very like striking appearance. And then this is a reminder for me to mention that something that I've tried that doesn't occur to people usually, but sometimes can work depending on your institution, is like, let's say you have a grant, like a F-31 or F-32, K-99, whatever, and it comes with some professional development funds. The NIH calls these things institutional allowance. So that usually is for conferences, travel, or whatever it is. Yeah, I one time was like, to Virginia Tech, I was like, hey, like this 5-year hosting, bill or whatever is important for my professional development to have this website. Like, can I use my grant to pay for this? And it worked. Like I was able to. So something to explore. I mean, it's not necessarily going to happen for you. It really depends on KUMC's. Every institution has their own policies on how they spend NIH money, but something to consider because it doesn't all have to come out of your pocket. Okay, so if you don't want to make a website yet, or you don't want to make a website ever, there's other things that you can do. We talked about some at the beginning of the talk, but also there's this thing called Linktree. I've never used it, but I've seen it a lot, and it's basically like a simple landing page that allows you to have links to whatever you want. People link to their CV, like on a Google Drive or something. Or so this is like 2 people I know. So like Lucky links to articles that they're quoted in, and a bunch of their social media is linked here. So it's just a centralized place where you can find different things. And Brielle uses hers to like, she doesn't have a website. Well, that's not true. She's building a website now for her lab. So she started a lab, and oh, here's an example of somebody who got a job in academia. So she's just opening her lab here at Harvard Medical School, and she never had a personal website. So like, you really don't need to have a website. But these are different like interviews or awards or news about her that she just aggregated in one place. And then at the bottom, if you scroll more down, you can find like links to her socials. So Linktree is a very simple solution. You can put it in your bio or wherever you put things if you don't have a website yet. Or like I said, Google Scholar. Very low, just literally go to scholar.google.com, log into your Google account. Easy to make, super easy. So things to consider. And then if you don't want to do either of those things, if you don't want to make a website or Google Scholar or Linktree or anything, then that's fine. It's your prerogative. You can live alone, have no friends, die alone. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's completely fine. You don't need to have any of these things we're talking about. This is just like showing you options. This is just a joke. And really, that's all I got for you. So thank you for your attention. My contact info is here. I wanted to thank Rebecca for the invitation. And also, I think my understanding is this is one of the first events of its kind over there. I think it's a really big deal, especially for postdocs and graduate students. Like professional development events like this are really important, and not all institutions do them. So just wanted to shout you out for putting this together. And I'm happy to take questions now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We were laughing over here at your joke, so you couldn't hear us.
Okay, I'm used to being
laughing.
the only one laughing at my jokes anyway, but I appreciate that.
No, we were there with you.
Okay.
We'll open it up. We have a few minutes for questions. So if anyone wants to put a question in the chat, I will help facilitate that. Or if anyone in the audience has another question.
Oh, that's good.
All right. And in the meantime, I have a couple questions. So how will you handle when your lab does become this thing that you have? Will you maintain a personal website, or will you then have just a lab website? Have you thought of that?
I have thought about that. I've seen people like postdocs I know who have a personal website transition it itself into a lab website. And I understand like not wanting to make a new thing, but the website is your full name.com. And I don't know, I feel kind of weird. Like my lab website is my name. It just feels a little strange. I mean, we do name labs after the PI's last name ordinarily. but it feels weirder to just have like ubatasabag.com and then that's me talking about my team. So I haven't really sorted it out. I mean, I suspect I will have a different website. I don't even know, like, am I going to call my lab after my name if I have a lab? Am I going to call it after my name?
When you have
But
that.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Or am I gonna, or is it gonna have like one of these, like, you know, people come up with all kinds of acronyms for like, you know, for the field of study that the lab focuses on? I don't know that yet. But I don't have like that much inertia against making a new website. Like I'll make a new website for the lab and probably use startup money to pay somebody to do it instead of me doing it, you know. So yeah, but I have seen people transition their personal website to a lab website. And I can't, I don't know, there's a little thing that puts me off to that a little bit because it feels, there's, I don't know, too much ego, I feel like, or even if there's no ego, it feels like, I don't know how the people in the lab would feel about that. So the convenience of not having to make another website is like dwarfed by the potential like discomfort that it might cause people in the lab being so like wrapped up in your identity. And I don't know if I said that right, but I think
Yeah, no,
you're
I can
nodding, so
understand
hopefully it
that.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple questions that have come in, so I will read off this first one. Nicole Yu, I believe is how it's pronounced, asks, for someone with minimal or no coding experience, which is also myself, which of the building services would you recommend?
Difficult to say unless I know like free or I mean, again, I guess I can answer both. If free, I think Wix is Wix is like, you know, PowerPoint, you know, like you're just like making a PowerPoint website essentially. So easy. So if you want to use something for free, you can go for Wix. WordPress also, it's just a little bit more effort than Wix, but not that much. Definitely you don't need to have coding experience for WordPress. But it's a little bit less drag and droppy depending on what template you use. If you're willing to pay, then I would say Squarespace. Like that, it might end up being like $200 a year or something. I don't know how the math works out. Very easy to find out, by the way. If you go to Squarespace website, you can see the different packages they have. I could have done it before this talk. I apologize, I haven't. But if you're willing to spend some money, Squarespace is a good one.
Thank you.
Perfect. Jared asks again, he says, beautiful website. Thank you for this presentation. You mentioned YouTube channels that you referenced to learn how to make your own website. He asked, what were those channels or other resources do you recommend for those of us who want to learn these basics in coding?
I'm sorry, Jared. I don't remember any channels. All I do is literally type into YouTube like basic questions, and then I'll watch usually the people who have a nice thumbnail, like a thumbnail that like for their video that looks like this is meant to be good instruction for like an amateur. I will watch that. But like, you know, I remember like looking at videos that were like an hour long or something. And so I will take like a weekend or an afternoon, sit in a cafe and like, be like, okay, I want to learn how to make an animated drop-down box or whatever it is, you know. So I'll write, you know, HTML, CSS, how to code drop-down box or how to code moving animation or something like that. And then try it out. And then there's also like, if you have debugging problems, I would literally like take the errors that you get and then put it in like, what's it called? It's very common, Stack Overflow or whatever. But I just put it in Google, and then Google takes you to like websites like Stack Overflow where people troubleshoot coding issues for everyone else. It's like a Yahoo Answers thing for, or Quora or whatever, like for coding. But I don't have channels to recommend, unfortunately. Like maybe I should have been paying attention more to who were the content creators. But I just put the question in YouTube and I start looking at videos. It's a low throughput process. I can't pretend to have optimized the learning process for this. But for me, it was fun because, you know, I don't know. I just wanted to like see how people, it helps you appreciate when somebody makes a website also, like yeah, amount of effort it takes to make it look so pretty.
questions? I will just say thank you for this because I had never thought of creating a website with that many sort of personal touches of like, these are my values and having that drive the website and how I put content in there. So this was really inspiring and eye-opening for me, and I'm excited to go get a website for myself. And I hope our other trainees watching are feeling the same. We have just a few minutes left. If there was any parting wisdom you wanted to leave us with. Oh, we do have a question. 1 second.
Oh, an in-person question. It's amazing.
How
That's good.
detrimental is an outdated website?
Not detrimental, honestly. I think the main thing I would do is put a thing that, like, for example, on my research page, I wouldn't say my website is outdated, for example, which I know is your question, but like my research page is outdated. So I put a note that says, I'm a postdoc now, I'm doing postdoc shit, but I don't have it on my website yet. So here's my contact page. Please email me if you want to chat. Like, here's the field that I'm working in. Email me if you want to chat. I think if you make a website and you feel like you just want to give up, you don't want to keep updating it, very simple thing to do is just put a header on the first page, the landing page, be like, this website is not current after this year, and then that's fine. If you have any questions, you can email me. And I think that's completely fine. The only way it can be harmful is if there are things you regret, you know? So like, then I would just take it down. If you get locked out of it, that's a different problem. Or, stop paying for the domain. It'll be inaccessible. But like, I feel like the only way it would be harmful is if it misleads people, or if it curates an image of you and your work that you no longer want, then it works against you. But otherwise, it's just a timestamp on your life and career at a particular stage. I definitely have seen some people's older websites that, and I would go and tell them like, hey, that thing that you said like there is kind of embarrassing. Like, maybe, do you still want to have it up there? Maybe try to go back and change it. Like, somebody called themselves like a trailblazer, an innovator, whatever, on their website. I was like, it's kind of weird to call yourself a trailblazer. I don't know. Like, maybe you don't want to do that. And his website was from like 8 years ago or something. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Yes, that was actually Dr. Bruce, who is heading the next session. And I do know she has a personal website. So
Oh my
it
God.
might have been a tell that she has not updated it in quite
Yeah.
a while. That, as along with all of our departmental websites, which seem to have pictures from when you first got your job,
years
no
ago.
matter how long you've been there. So
Yeah.
maybe academia isn't the best example for that. Thank you so much for this.
Yes.
We will be, for those asking, we will be sending out the recording